Welcome to the Infinity Podcast. I'm your host, Warren. In today's episode, we're taking a deep dive into Bradley's journey to becoming a personal trainer, because it's not your usual one. See, Bradley struggles with cerebral palsy. It's something that he's had to deal with throughout his life growing up, from not being able to use his right side, having drop foot syndrome, to having to navigate some of those challenges and those mindsets around being able to do what other kids might take for granted. So let's take a look at his journey. Let's dive into this and join me on this interview with Bradley to see how he overcame some of the challenges that he dealt with. I hope that you enjoy it. Tell us a little bit about how your journey started in getting into personal training, Bradley.
I knew being physical benefited like me and my disability, cerebral palsy. And I also, with my surroundings, I seen people do the typical 9-to-5 job and not being able to fit in the gym. So I wanted to fit in the gym and obviously still work. And then that's where I learned about becoming a PT and then pursuing the PT and then enjoying helping people overcome their problems and seeing them come from like essentially the biggest low of the life to the biggest high of the life of overcoming that problem.
Probably a good thing to flip back on here is like people will struggle with conditions like this, and I think the most important thing to understand is like someone's mindset in getting over it. So what would be cool is if we can flip back to the beginning, like when you were younger, how did your experiences growing up shape you to want to then become a PT and make this part of your life?
Growing up, I didn't have the use of my right side as I do now. Like my right arm used to be attached to my body like this. I just used to be a left-handed person. Same with my leg. I just used to drag it along. And then I realized, right, if I wanna play with my friends, if I wanna be part of like the social part of school, I need to be able to use both limbs. So then it just became not a chore, a challenge to overcome. Like, right, how do I make my right arm move like my left arm? How do I make my right leg move like my left leg? And it was always just like, right, let's play football and trial and error. Like, let's spend 5 minutes only kicking it with my right leg, and then the next 5 with my left. And it was just little things like that that helped me throughout my like year by year, and the challenges just got progressively harder. Like even now, I set myself challenges like that no one knows about, like hoovering this gym floor. I'll do a certain amount of squares with my left arm, certain amount of squares with my right, instead of just doing right. I know I can do it quicker on my left, but what's the point? Like, because then my right arm's not doing what my left arm's doing, and it's like all just coordination, just making sure I'm on point all the time.
I think a lot of people struggle with that as they get older, but they blame it on like getting older, on the balance. But this is something that you constantly battle with on a day-to-day basis. You mentioned there as well, as you were growing up, your arm was stuck by your side, your right arm, and you were dragging your leg. Like, at what age was this?
Like primary school, and the start of secondary, because with my right foot, I suffer from drop foot,
Yeah.
to the point where they actually had to put my leg in a cast to make the muscles flex at 90 degrees and stay there.
Yeah.
I did that twice. I had 2 pots on, and now it's just I still do the exercise. It's like flexing my ankle. I do it every morning. It's the first thing I do. I get to the edge of the bed and flex my foot as if I'm driving before I even get in my car and drive, ironically.
Yeah.
But it's just constant rinse and repeat from a young age.
And how was the experience of growing up then? Because obviously being in schools, like being around other kids, like, and obviously you're dealing with this condition, how did that affect you?
Quite a lot, because everyone around me could just naturally do things like for example, when the Olympics are on in school, you start doing the Olympics yourself. High jump, you're bounding and you're jumping up. Now I only have one strong side, but you have to be able to jump off both legs. So everyone else can just naturally do it. I've got 1,000 things going through my head whilst I'm running to the pole, I'm like, I need to make sure I'm jumping off both legs equally. It's little things like that, and it's like not allowing like the initial failure to then go, can't do that, I won't do that ever again in my life. Like the amount of times I've failed at something and I went, right, I need to learn how to do it. Like there's lessons in that failure. Like high jump, first time doing it, I completely forgot to jump because there was 1,000 things going through my head. Boom, into the pole. Everyone laughs, but I'm like embarrassed because I've just ran straight into a pole. Next time, I'm like, right, remember to jump. It's a super obvious thing, but it's just your mind goes elsewhere.
And where do you think that resilience comes from then?
School, being afraid of being bullied. So it's just like, right, if you don't want to be bullied, you have to either match the overall average or be better than the average.
Yeah.
Some things I was better than other people, and mainly it was, funny enough, because I didn't have the ability to run, was long running. That's why I still do long running now, because I know I'm good at it. And things I wasn't good at, like football, because it required both sides to be equal, I just worked at to the point where I'd go to a football pitch and play by myself and just kick it with left to right, left to right, left to right.
See, I can relate a lot to that because when I played football, I always remember the team that I played for, Rosewood Social Club. They had, they had a lot of players playing for them, and it was like, where do I fit into this team?
Yeah.
And being a kid who was like, I was a little bit overweight, it was like, I was always one of the players that was either a substitute or played on the left side in defence.
Yeah.
And I was a right-footed player, predominantly right-handed. And similar to what you'd mentioned about learning to use your right hand, I then went over to the school and I just used to kick the ball at the wall consistently with my left foot. And I thought, if I can use both legs, I've got a little bit more of an advantage, something that allows me to get more game time. And it did work out like that. And then as I got older, I became a predominantly left-footed player playing on the left wing for some of the teams that I played for. So I find it really interesting and relatable, that some of the things that you're going through. Obviously, you're dealing with something that was a physical challenge, a physical block that you've had to overcome. But what about outside influence then? Like, have your parents, has your family had an influence on your resilience to overcome this? Because I know that for a lot of people, when their child is going through something like this, it's unconscious, but a lot of people will sort of mollycoddle them. They'll make it known to everybody that they can't do X, Y, and Z. And for me personally, I think that breeds a dependence on other people. Whereas like for you, it was like you've got this like stubborn resilience, if you like, that you're not going to let it overcome you. What sort of influence have you had from other people?
Well, it's predominantly my mum and my dad. They always brought me up with this. Funny enough, I say it now, is you don't know if you don't try. To the point where I'd be going to like secondary school and I'd be like, I can't do that. And then it'd be like phone, and then I'd be going home and I'd be like, Mum, I didn't do this, and why? I just knew I couldn't do it. And I'm like, well, did you try? No. So how do you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so the next day I'd have to go and try and realise I can do it, but being a stubborn teenager, I'd never tell my mum. But it's that niggling voice in the back head saying, well, now you need to try everything. Like, I still fail at things today that people learned as a kid, like swimming, cycling, skipping. Them three things I'm still not confident in doing. I still trying to do. Like the amount of times I've almost died in water, like 3 times I've had to be saved. That won't stop me because I want to be able to swim. Like, we're talking about going paddleboarding. It's in open water. I need the ability to swim.
Yeah.
Same with cycling. It's something that everyone enjoys doing in the summer. I want to be able to do it. It's just things like that where, yes, I know I can't currently do it, but that doesn't mean I won't be able to do it in a month, 3 months. It might take me a year to learn that skill, but in a year time, I'll look back and go, God, good job I didn't give up then. Like it's just things like that.
It is amazing to see how far you can actually come with that. And obviously some of the things that you mentioned there where you say to yourself, I can't do that. We'll see that in some of the ladies that we train.
Yeah.
Like, and they've got a different experience or a different upcoming when it comes to that. And I mean, how do you feel when you see that? Like when you see the ladies who are struggling with that, even though you've been in that position, like what goes through your mind then?
I always have a little like conversation with myself, because it's like, right, don't be too aggressive with the ladies, because like we all know that they can achieve it. It's just going to take time, but they're in the stage where they're uncertain and they're not sure whether they'll ever be able to do it. Just like me with things in my life. At one point I was uncertain. I was like, maybe I'll never be able to do it. But then it just takes time to learn. And that's what you were basically teaching them to understand, that everything doesn't happen overnight. Like, yes, we're in a time period where you can watch an elite person train. You'll watch their week's worth of training and go, God, I'll never be like that. But what you don't see is the years and years of the dedication to that one thing.
I think one of the biggest things to understand is that a lot of people will see stuff on social media and they're like, that's amazing. Regardless of their age, because we're seeing more people who are elderly now who are doing strength training, and people are like, I'll never get to that point. But they'll argue and explain things away because of their situation and circumstance and think that it's different to other people's. But the biggest problem is exactly what you said. It's just learning to start with where you're at right now and then building up to it. It can seem overwhelming when you're looking at it like a mountain. Like our biggest one here is Rosebery Topping. We're going to do the walk soon. And still there are people that tell me that they couldn't walk to the top of Rosebery Topping. Now, the view from up there is amazing. Yeah. We're going to do it on a night, so hopefully we get a nice sunset, although it's been cloudy recently. But these challenges are things that when you overcome them, you're able to do so much more because you build that confidence and that resilience. And the benefit of this is that you've been able to do that at a young age. So regardless of the challenge, you've set yourself up to have long-term success. Now, I'm just wondering, has there been specific people in your life that have positively influenced you around this, other than your parents, like teachers at school or anything like that, that have given you the support? Because you can't just, or in my mind, you can't just have those people that are closest to you doing it, because all it would then take is someone outside to go, you can't do that.
Yeah, like there was a few teachers that were like that understood what cerebral palsy was and what it took to like not make me normal, but make me able to do the sport or the activity. Like Mr. Matches was a PE teacher, and I always remember we were playing football and it was with people who were 10 times better than me. Like they were on the A team and I was on like the C team, struggling to get off the bench. So I had no business being on the same pitch as him. But he was like, right, Bradley, I'm going to be in goal, you be in defence, and I'll tell you what to do and when to do it. And it was like, I was only on there for 15 minutes, but I was like, God, like someone's given me that opportunity to play with people who I shouldn't be playing with. And like, he's actually understanding like what's going on with me and where I am right now. I was like, and he will never remember that, but I will always remember that.
I think that's quite similar to I don't know if you've seen it, but you know Ian Wright.
Yeah.
And I remember him sitting in a stadium and he had this teacher. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about this. But he had this teacher come up to him, and he taps him on the shoulder, and it's his teacher from school, and he wells up, and he starts getting emotional because I think it's something along the lines of that teacher was one of the biggest influences that caused him to become a footballer. And I think that's a magical thing, because we've all got those experiences, but it's not until we draw on them as memories that they can be so powerful in making us take action in the direction that they want. And this is probably one of the biggest benefits, in my opinion, from school. like I talked to you about this recently, but one of my biggest experiences at school wasn't as positive as that one. It was, I was a little bit of a shit at school, so I was in trouble quite a lot. I was always playing up, as they say, and my mum got called into the school. She'd been called into the school numerous times. I've been on conduct and yellow, blue. We used to have these conduct things that you get written in. If you get a blue conduct and it's a bad report, you get one bad report in it, you're out the school for a suspended period of time, which did happen. But I was fortunate enough not to get excluded completely from school. But on this one occasion, my mum come up with the school, and I remember walking into the reception area, past all the trophies that we had, although we never really won any while I was there, so God knows when they come about. Walk past the trophy cabinet, walk into this little room. I could see my mum sat there in my head here, and as I walked in, we were having a conversation, and my mum got really upset, and I could only see her out the corner of my eye because I'm watching what the head of year is talking about and saying everything that I've been doing wrong, which was fair. And mum just got up and went, I can't do this, and she walked out and she was upset. And that was a powerful changing moment for me, because it makes you realise, more than someone shouting at you, how much of a difference and an impact that makes. So it's like, it's drawn on those experiences and how they influence either change or staying the same. Because my mum could have sat there and she could have been like, oh, you're doing this, and I could have just locked up and just totally shut down and not taken any action from that. She can't have known the impact that that would have had on me, but had it not been for that moment, potentially I couldn't have done what I've done, gone to university and all that stuff. But it is amazing to hear those stories, and you'd probably be surprised at how many of those they actually remember, because we work with teachers, we know about the stories that they tell us, and I think that they're a powerful influence on the positivity and the growth of a child moving forward, although you don't see it in the moment. And the same is true when you're coming into the gym. Most people don't see the point in lifting weights. Well, you're just picking it up and putting it down, but then you get heavier, and then you see the benefit of that outside, and then you see how much of an influence that has on your confidence, and it's a massive boost overall. So I think one of the most important things to jump back to, actually, now that we've talked about that, is what is CP? What is cerebral palsy?
Now, listen, right. I might have the disability, but I don't fully understand the disability. It's one of them things where I go through it, I'm just, what's the word? Forgot the word. Doesn't matter. But anyway, back to my point. So, my understanding of it is it affects your coordination, your balance, and the muscle growth of either both or one side of your body. There is people a lot worse off than me, and probably that go through it better than me. For instance, you can be wheelchair bound, or you can be similar to me, have the ability to use both limbs. You're just slightly restricted in your ability of how you can use it.
Yeah, so I mean, it usually develops at young age, develops as a brain condition. It gives you stiffness, it can affect coordination. It can be to extremes, or as you dealt with it. So it can have a big impact on someone's ability to do day-to-day tasks, and it can rule someone's life. But as we found out, like resistance training and coordination training, as you've done at a young age, playing sport, it can be super helpful. And I think that's one of the biggest things to understand here, is that movement is something that we do every day throughout our lives, usually until the age of maybe our late 20s, when things start to slow down. People have a more sedentary job. Even if they're standing as a teacher at school all day, being stood in that same position isn't going to be helpful. We don't do the bending, we don't do the twisting, the turning that we would do in a sporting environment. So gyms are going to be the next best thing. Most people join the gym, get bored with it, don't know what to do, leave the gym, go back to the gym a few months later, think they'll try it again, try the classes, get bored with the classes after a period of time, and the cycle continues for the rest of their life. But then they get to the point where they're in the 40s and 50s, and what we experience with the ladies that we work with, they've got stiffness, they've got joint pain, and they've got all of these issues, and you can see that coordination as depleted over time. Now, if you weren't doing what you were doing, that would have happened way sooner. Like, obviously you're not in your 30s yet, but like as you're getting older, you might face new challenges, but because you've built up that resilience at such a young age, you're probably going to be better placed to cope with that. I suppose the big question is, like, why personal training then? Because obviously it's got to add in more challenges. Like, you see people who are out there who are more able. You probably got people that you follow on social media that have got no movement or mobility issues or coordination issues, and you're following them. Like, what was the big driving point in thinking, right, this is going to be my strategy, this is going to be what I want to do for the rest of my life?
Well, it was, for me, the biggest part was it was a win-win. I helped people achieve their goals, which I always got a sense of accomplishment from helping people, and I'm still able to be physically active because I have to demo the movements at bare minimum. So it was just a process of watching and learning from people who were already PTs and picking up little tips and tricks, but also using what I go through to help people. Like muscle stiffness, I have it every day. I have certain exercises that I do day in, day out religiously, just so I can move freely without thinking, oh, that muscle's a bit tight, that muscle's a bit tight. And same with strength training. I'm probably a couple of years behind because, well, the research was, when I was growing up, it was more to do with coordination, and they believed that strength training would actually hinder people with cerebral palsy. So it was something you were told not to do by everyone, physios to doctors. So I picked that up when I went to college, not because I was told to, because I thought I needed to, because I needed to get stronger instead of just always sticking to cardio and coordination. But it was just a process of watching people that I liked. And there was I always remember this, I don't know where I'd be able to find the video now, but there was a guy who was a bodybuilder, but he had cerebral palsy. A lot worse than me because it affected both sides. And he had, like, I don't know what the syndrome's called, but basically his arms couldn't stay still. He was always shaking. And I was like, God, if he can do that and he's in a lot worse position than me, then what's stopping me to becoming a PT and being good at what I do?
Yeah. So it's finding inspiration in others that have sort of walked that path. Because when you're on your own and you're in your own head and you're struggling with what you're going through, whether that's CP, whether that is diabetes, whether it's rheumatoid arthritis, whether it is Parkinson's or any other condition, the biggest thing is that you can feel like you're stuck in that world on your own, and you're going through those challenges. And I mean, for me personally, like, something that I'm seeing more and more is Chris Hoy at the moment. He's got stage 4 cancer. I can't remember which cancer it is, but he's got stage 4 terminal cancer, and you can see like how things have changed for him. Because I remember watching him at the Olympics, and he was like this phenomenal athlete, and then you've just gradually seen him, like, as he struggled in the background. We've only seen it more and more because I've followed him recently on social media, but it's amazing to see how much of an inspiration he's been for other people, and so many more men have been checked as a result, and they've been and they've caught the cancer early. Yeah. And I think that's a massive positive. And I think being around people that have been on that journey, or being able to follow them and see them, is a more positive influence than following people who are at the peak of physical fitness, whether that is the Mr. Universe or something like that for guys, or the equivalent for women. Like, when you follow those people, you're never going to feel like you stack up, because they are way further ahead, and all you've got to do is focus on where you're at right now, and then master that and move forward. So the next thing I want to sort of go over is your core philosophy. Like, I suppose this is your own beliefs and values. This is not what we carry here at Infinity necessarily, but I suppose, like, one of the main things with that is that they align, because obviously we wouldn't be working together otherwise. But, like, what is your core philosophy around strength training just in general then?
So I think everyone should be doing it. From I'd say this is where it probably kicks up a few different opinions. I think you should be doing it from the age of like the start of secondary school all the way until you literally are dead in a coffin, because the benefits are always going up. They never really plateau or decrease unless you stop pushing yourself or stop doing it completely. And I know everyone's going through different things and everyone have different conditions, but strength training helps majority of conditions that either I've seen personally or I've read an article about or watched a documentary about. It's just one thing that is a certainty to help you. Now, it's not a cure, it just helps, and everyone should be doing it.
I think one of the best things to look at when we look at strength training is it's just like investing money, but this time you're investing in your health as opposed to your wealth. Now, the real thing here is that like a lot of the time when people are investing the money, they want to take that out and use it in later life. Now, that's all good and well, but if you don't have your health, how are you going to utilize that wealth? You're just passing it on to the next person. And for me as a father, it's more important to look at this, not just in terms of you, but in terms of how this affects your family. Because when you're in pain and you're suffering, what that can do is it can have a knock-on impact on the people that are around you. Even if you don't intend to do it, subconsciously, they can adopt your habits and behaviors. So if you're someone who's less active, they're more likely to be less active. We see this every single day. We see that athletes whose children then go into sport, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be at the same sort of level. It's just giving them the best possible start, and everybody wants that as a parent. Obviously, that's something that you want to influence as a coach, and I 100% agree with you that this is something that we should do for the rest of our life. The one thing that I think is different is that I don't think that strength training has a start age necessarily. I mean, we've got Nora now, she's 18 months. At the time of recording this, she picks stuff up off the floor. Like, she's not picking weights up, but she's picking up objects that are progressively heavier. She's picking up the phone. She wasn't doing that at one point. The phone doesn't weigh a great deal. She's picked up 1 kilo weights in the gym. It's not going to harm her in doing that, but once it's done progressively, at this moment in time, when it starts at a young age, it's got to be done with the mindset of play. We can't do it in a structured way that we would do in the gym, because we're specifically working towards something. But for children, if we show them how to do that, whether it comes in the form of gymnastics, jiu-jitsu, two sports which I think personally are fantastic for kids because it helps them to move better, it helps and improves the coordination and strength at the same time, but it's also going to give them the benefits of mobility that most kids won't have, because most kids are going to school, they're sitting on chairs, they're sitting in that same position all the time, and they lose the mobility way faster. I think if we don't do something about this, I think that what we're going to find is that all of those problems that people get in their 50s and 60s with stiff hips, joints, knees, all that sort of stuff is going to become more prominent at the age of 20, because our lives are set up to be so much easier these days. We don't move around as much. We don't have as much manual labor when it comes to work at home. So I think all of those things are going to be influenced. So I 100% agree. I think that it starts with us. I'm the person, and my girlfriend Naomi is the person that is going to have the positive influence on her ability to move forward. Is that going to work out exactly as planned? I don't know, but I'm going to set her up with the best opportunities that I can as a parent, because I want the best for her. And that's going to start with her seeing us doing positive things with our health and lifestyle. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is mastering the ability to make adjustments. So as a coach, you're obviously aware about your own limitations, but you never let that stop you or hold you back. So when it comes to training people in the gym, like, can you give examples? Say, for example, if someone comes in and they've got knee pain, how are you going to adjust that? Like, what would you look at?
Normally, I would want to be looking at like how they move. So it's done pretty much as soon as I walk through the doors, because I'm looking at how they're walking through the door. Are they limping? Are they grimacing on the face? And then if it's a notable for them, it's like, right, warm up. If we've got squats on that day, then it's, right, can the squat to a high box? Yes. Then it's just, right, how painful is it? If it's painful, then let's stick with the high box, but add some assistance to it. So we have a TRX high box squats. You're still getting the movement for the joint and pain free. So it's a win-win for them, and it's a win for me, because they threw a curveball at me essentially, and I've learned from that person.
I think one of the biggest things any time we get movement is like being able to assess anyone on any given day, because some days we're going to wake up stiffer than others. Some days you're going to wake up and you might have inflammation. We work with ladies who've got fibromyalgia. They can have flare-ups with chronic pain, back pain problems, knee issues, that even though you've got no clear indication as to how that happened, those things can happen, and you have to pivot and shift as a coach to understand how you're going to help and support them. And I think that's one of the most important things, is like being able to work with the person that's in front of you, rather than saying, everybody, this is what we're going to do today, and trying to essentially fit a square peg into a round hole by forcing everyone and pigeonholing them to do the same exercises on any given day. So when it comes to helping the members then, if someone comes in and they've got chronic pain, like what are some of the changes that you might make other than the exercises? Like what are some of the communications that you might make with them? Like how would you operate with that?
It's understanding that sometimes you need to do the movement in pain to actually help what is wrong with you. So for a good example is, well, it's a good and a bad one, because I don't know how it comes along and how to fix it, but a frozen shoulder. All the movements you do to help reduce the pain, you're in pain whilst you're doing them. For example, Tracy, she has a frozen shoulder. She's in pain when she's doing shoulder press, when she's hanging from the bar, and she does them and she feels a relief after she's done them. Now I know I've picked a bad example because we can't exactly tell her how to fix it because it's unknown, but there is something in it there, and it's communicating with Tracy to say, like, listen, you are going to be in pain whilst you're doing it, but you're going to feel better for doing it. And I think that's what people get confused about, because they think I shouldn't be in pain whilst I'm doing exercise, so I'm going to avoid doing that exercise.
It's probably one of the biggest things is like the communication and the breakdown in communication. If you go to the doctors and you've got something like a frozen shoulder, they might say, there's nothing really we can do to help. It'll usually go by 18 months to 2 years, which is true. But when you're dealing with frozen shoulder, it impacts pretty much everything that you do. If you're going to lift your arm above your head, it's going to impact that. You're going to have soreness and you're going to have pain. Now, what that creates, and what a lot of doctors either don't acknowledge or don't fully appreciate, is how that can impact your day-to-day life. Because anytime that you're in pain, your muscles will tighten up. That creates fatigue. It has a knock-on impact. If you're in bed asleep, it's gonna disrupt your sleep. So it's gonna cause you to have like progressively worse days, and that's gonna impact into your life. Now, that's gonna cause then that person to not show up as they would. It's gonna cause that person to say that they don't want to do certain things because of the pain that they're in, and you become less of yourself. And what happens as a result is that you move your arm less, your muscles atrophy, and then over time you're in a worse off position, and yet the pain might have reduced. But then what you'll find is that you've got a massive difference between the strength in one arm versus the strength in another. And I think that's what you mentioned, is like when you're going through pain, there is a level of discomfort that you can sort of manage as you're trying to work past that pain. And in doing so, what it can do is reduce the sensitivity of pain over time, so that you can move way better, way faster, and you remain strong as well. And one of the things that I'll say quite often now, it's a quote by a guy called Lane Norton, is you can be weak and have pain, or you can be strong and have pain. But either way, you're gonna have pain at some point in your life, whether that's back pain, whether that's shoulder pain. We're all gonna have pain at some point in our life. If we're stronger, we're better equipped to deal with those situations, and it just makes sense to work through that with someone that 100% understands what you're going through. And this is something that we work with our ladies on a regular basis. And I think that is the next thing that I want to sort of switch towards as well, is like when it comes down to the communication, it's about helping people to understand what that might look like, what that might feel like, and framing it in a way that's understandable for them. Because I think the mindset aspect of this is key to helping someone overcome those barriers. Like what have you observed when you've been coaching people when it comes to the mindset around that, and how do you get around someone's reluctance to do an exercise because they're worried about being in pain?
For example, a person came in today and it's push-ups. Now, they're unsure whether they can do slingshot press-ups, and they don't want to try it because they're afraid to fail. So it's known that before they say it themselves in the warm-up. So it's right, get them on the barbell and do push-ups on the barbell. Show that person that they can do press-ups, to then knock them down to doing a more advanced than a barbell push-ups, which is a slingshot, and then letting them try the slingshot press-up and watching them achieve a slingshot press-up with that doubt in mind that they couldn't do it themselves.
Yeah.
And then seeing, I love the reaction on the face when they can do the press-up, like, oh my God, I can't believe I've just done it. And it's like, right, and it's like not stopping, it's like, right, do another one. Prove to yourself that you can actually do it, and do another one, do another one. And then they've done 3 rounds of 10 reps on a version of a press-up that in the warm-up they were saying that they can't do.
Yeah.
And it's just, I love that process of taking someone from they think they can't do it to achieving it. And I know that's a short example because I've done that in an hour. That's how good I am. But with joint pain and muscle tightness and muscle soreness, unfortunately it takes longer than an hour, but it's still achievable.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing with it is understanding that although you only get an hour with that person, if someone's struggling with pain, they spend that 1 hour with you that's dedicated to you working with them personally to understand what's going through. Try movements, figure out what works, discard or adjust what isn't working, and then work with that. But it's not just one session, it's multiple sessions led over months and months, and then eventually they get to the point where, I say this all the time, people often get to the point where they're no longer in pain, but they don't recognize that they're no longer in pain until they do something that they weren't able to do before. And it's just like a light bulb moment. It's like, oh, I've just realized I went up and down the stairs and I wasn't in pain. I've just realized I'm able to squat down onto the lower box when I come into the gym. I've just realized I can get the shopping out of the car without having to brace myself and being in constant pain. And that's one of the big things about doing this, is like, it's all about confidence. We talk about confidence in terms of what it means outside, but having the confidence to be able to try, although that you might fail in that moment, does not mean that you are a failure. You only fail at something when you give up. And I think this is a powerful thing for a lot of people that sit on the fence and say, oh, I can't do that because I'm too old. You're getting old, whether you like it or not. You're going to be in a position eventually where you're not able to do that stuff. And we know that more and more people are spending the vast majority of their later life. I think it's upwards of 50% of people now who are 65 plus are spending their life in a retirement home at some point. That's a large portion of your later life. In some respects, it's upwards of 20 years. Now, if you want to live your life that way, that's absolutely fine. But for me personally, I would rather do everything that I can as early as I can to try and avoid that. And look, if you're dealing with pain right now, it does not mean that you're over the hill. You can still work at this, and you can still build strength, you can still build muscle, and you can still have that time and joy in your life that you want to have. I think one of the major things when it comes to overcoming that stuff is this isn't about the exercises. It never was. It's amazing to see when someone does a PB in the gym. But for me personally, what I think is amazing is when you see the impact that has on their lives outside, whether that is taking the kids to the park, whether that is being able to do an activity that they've not been able to do for a while, paddleboarding, going and playing tennis, all sorts of things like this. It can have a massive impact on your life. And you know what? When you're stronger, you show up more positively. And when you show up more positively, you have more confidence. And when you're around people that you love and care about, they'll see the difference in you as well. The next thing that I want to sort of cover is like the universal message around this. So like if there was one piece of advice that you would give to someone who is looking to get into strength training, like where would you tell them to start? Obviously Infinity is the main one, but like where would you tell someone to start? Because a lot of ladies struggle when it comes to going to commercial gyms. A lot of ladies walk through the door, they know they're not going to get the help and attention, yet they take that step, they feel intimidated and never do anything about it. Like what would be your advice to someone who's stuck in that position?
Well, I know it's going to sound a lot like a sales pitch because this is an independent gym and it's not a commercial, but I would avoid commercial gyms at all costs because I know they've got PTs, I know they've got stuff, but I think they're set up for people who already have the ability and knowledge of how to lift and how to do it correctly. I don't think they're set up for beginners, even the classes, because they're on mass classes, like it's 20 plus. I think if independent gyms are set up in the right way because it's small group PT and it's personalized to the person that's walking through them doors. Like there's 6 ladies per class and everyone's doing something slightly different. Yeah, you all might be doing a press up, but you've all got different coaching cues for that press up. And it's just knowing that when you're a beginner, the best place for you is somewhere where you know you can walk through them doors and you're getting looked after, other than walking through the doors and knowing you're not getting looked after and you might hurt your back, your knee on the very first day and never go back through the doors.
I think that happens time and time again. Like you'll see people sign up to the gym, they go in, they do a couple of exercises, you can see it in someone's face. I mean, I've seen this as a personal trainer. I don't know if you've experienced it when you work in a commercial gym, but you'll see then that they're very tunnel vision. They don't like looking around or making eye contact with anyone, so they look down anytime that you're looking up. And I get it, like if that's a personal trainer, if I'm walking past you and you look down like that, it's like, oh, I don't want to make eye contact because I don't want that personal trainer to say hello because I feel like he's going to sell to me. And it's not the case. Like the majority of personal trainers that go into the gyms, in my opinion, they come from their own insecurities. They started the gym because they were insecure about a situation that was in their life, similar to what you've dealt with, Bradley, similar to what I had dealt with, social anxiety and lots of other issues that were going on. But you don't recognize that until later down the line. You're just like, oh, I want to get fit. And I get that. The majority of people that we speak to come to us, I want to tone up, I want to get fitter, I want to get stronger. But until we understand what the driving factors are behind that, it's really difficult to help and support someone. But as you said, it's when you're starting for the first time, it's important to understand what you want out of this. Because if you just want to tone up, if you just want to get a little bit fitter, and you start by going to the gym and you've got no real plan around how you're going to do that, chances are you're going to give up. And if you're a lady who's done this repeatedly for years and years of your life, it's time to make a change. Now, if you've got a program, you don't need to see a personal trainer for that. I'll just say that right now. You can go online, you can use AI these days, and it'll write out a program for you. The problem is that most people don't need that. What they need is accountability and support. Someone who's going to be there with them to give them guidance, to give them comfort, and to provide them with the confidence before they build it, to know that what they're doing is in line with what they want to achieve. It's going to help them towards their goals. It's going to avoid them getting injured, and it's going to make them feel more confident in themselves the minute they walk out the door. We talk about all the time, the best thing that you can do for someone in a coaching session is for them to leave knowing that this was the best part of the day. Now, just talk about a little bit about that from your understanding, Bradley. What do I mean when I say like this is your opportunity to be the best part of that person's day? Everyone
we work with has stress going on in their lives, whether it's work, family situations, or you're just in one of them moods where you just don't want to be here, but you know you have to turn up. And forgetting that yes, I need to deliver a workout, but I also need to make sure that person is leaving with a smile on their face. Now, 100% of the time, I make an idiot out of myself because I'll try and crack a joke. 9 times out of 10, it's an awful dad joke, or I will, like, for example.
You're not even a dad.
I know. For example, Emma, she was going to California. Yes, she wasn't down and sad about going to California because she's going there for a holiday, but I built a whole scenario. It was sled push, right? Imagine a bear's chasing you. You've got to push your 2 kids on a sled. Come on, Emma. That day she hit a PB on the sled and left laughing and with a smile on her face because she was imagining herself running away from a bear with a sled and pushing the kids. It's going back to that playful environment that you were in when you were a kid. Now, I know I've built like an extreme scenario because no one's getting chased by a bear unless you're in America. But when
Unless you are.
Unless you are. But I always try and relate to that playful environment. Like Adele walks in and she's obsessed with her scapulars at the moment. She says they're not talking to the rest of her body. So it's right, how do I make that a playful situation for her? Now, she's got someone at home who stuck a £20 note between her scapulars, and when you can hold that, you can keep the £20 note. So now it's making the scapulars stronger to be able to hold some money between her shoulder blades to keep it.
Crazy. But I mean, I suppose if it's a challenge and something that people want to work on, like we see them all the time on social media, like where people are bending down, like they have to squat down and pick up a piece of cardboard off the floor with the mouth, but they're not allowed to put their knees or their hips on the floor. Yeah. They just have to squat down. I mean, those challenges are fun because they're enjoyable, but also it allows you to see where someone's mobility is at. And I think that's one of the biggest things is like when we're doing this, it's like how it affects outside. I talk about beyond fitness all the time because I think that now, having spent years and years in the gym, hours in the gym, in fact, like 5-6 days a week, this isn't the thing that I want to spend my life doing. I don't want to be inside 4 walls. I don't want to be stuck inside the gym. So everything that I do now is based on what it allows me to do outside. If that's playing with my daughter, great. If that's going out on my bike, if that's flying a drone or walking up Rosebery Top, and all of those things are what allows me to create memories. And coming into the gym and having the strength to do that allows me to continuously do that as I get older. And it's just evaluating what that actually means to a person. Now, some people come to us, they can't even walk up the stairs. So the first step is being able to walk up the stairs. And I love hearing those stories as well. Like Liz, who came to us, we've talked about her multiple times before, couldn't kneel down on the floor, started her off on the assault bike, going round. She could only do 10 turns and it was excruciating in terms of pain, what she was going through. Now, we didn't know how much of an impact or improvement she was going to see on that. Yet, a couple of months later, she's jumping up on a box. And that was amazing to see because now we know that if we can increase the confidence in that person to try, we know that at least they can get to a better place. Now, that's not to say that Liz isn't without her challenges moving forward and that she doesn't need to keep on working on that stuff, because that's another fallacy that most people have, is that they say they want to lose weight, they lose weight, and then they go back to the way of living, and then everything goes back to the way that it was before. Yet now that you've lost the weight, you haven't concentrated on maintaining muscle mass, so you've lost some of that. Your metabolism is in a worse place, so it's technically a little bit slower. And if you do that repeatedly throughout parts of your life, as you're getting older, you're losing more muscle mass, which makes it even harder. So when you actually break it down to look at that as an overall picture, you're in a worse off position because you haven't consistently worked at the thing that's going to be investing in your health for the long term. And I think that's the biggest thing here, is like anytime that you sign up to a gym, whether it's Infinity, whether it's a commercial gym, you have to look at this as a long-term investment. Now, the majority of people sign up at different times throughout the year. When the kids go back to school in September, in January, after they've had an absolute whale of a time over Christmas, drinking everything in sight and eating all the food. And it doesn't last very long because they set themselves up to fail. I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to tone up, I'm going to make it work this year. And you're promising yourself something that you really don't believe in. And until you can change your identity around that, and until you can change your lifestyle and your routine, it's probably not going to come to fruition. This is something that I see time and time again. Now, every time that I have a conversation with someone, I want to understand more deeply what that person wants, not just what your goal is in terms of losing weight and toning up. Like, why is that impacting your life? When we understand that, that's going to be the thing that keeps you coming way longer. Once the motivation's gone, that's going to be the thing that keeps you disciplined to come in 2 or 4 times per week, working on yourself and seeing those improvements week after week. So I think pretty much that's it. I appreciate you going through that, Bradley. Is there anything else that you want to add? Any tidbits that you want to dive in and just add there?
No, just you don't know if you don't try. Just keep on trying.
I think that's a great saying. I mean, one of our ladies who came to us before you started, Bradley, Donna, she used to say it all the time. Like, you don't know if you don't try. I'll give it a go. That was her famous saying, and we still say it every now and again. Like, we've got other ladies who come in now, like Eve, Strong Light Bull, like, have these sayings. But it's great to see the confidence come through in those people. And when it comes time for people to move on and do other stuff, as long as they keep it up, you're going to keep your health up. So, yeah, appreciate you guys. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.